So I'm going to take care of the Discord guys first.
Okay.
They're primarily a group of 7 players that just started. The rest of the Discord, they have just basic questions which are answered already. Okay. So these group of 7 players are similar to the group of players that I went through with. And they've been playing MMORPGs for like over a decade. Like all of them. The good, the bad, the unknowns, all of them. A few of the questions that they had primarily came to cosmetic stuff.
Okay.
And we noticed this too. When you go through the character creation, there are a ton of sliders, like a lot more than most other games. However, with the hair coloring, I'm not sure if there's too many sliders in it or what's going on, but we weren't able to get the exact color we wanted.
Okay.
And so they're wondering if there's any way that like an RGB hairstyle system could be implemented. It's another Unreal Engine 3 game to more accurately and easier change the color of your hair.
Okay. Before I answer, just for the recording, my name is Wes Conner. I am the producer from E&A out of Irvine, California, and I'm very happy to do this interview with Rob. So, the first question about actually having more control over a character's hair color. I need to preface this with saying that's a pretty technical question, and I'm going to have to check on what the limitations of Unreal 3 is there. But I want to believe at the very least you should be able to enter in a hex value for the color, because colors are stored as a hex. And if that exists, it definitely won't be in by the launch spec, but that's something that sounds really reasonable to me and shouldn't take too hard to do. So, no, it won't exist at launch, but that's a good idea, and I'd be really happy to see that happen.
Okay. One of the things that I'm trying to do is that we're all passionate about the game. We all want it to succeed, and we are ecstatic that you're in a place to actually enact change with how games are published here in the West.
Yep.
Especially with the Eastern games. We've been over and over again, and knowing that you're at the helm trying to fight against a lot of these things that are popular in the East and are predatory here really helped out a lot. So we actually sat down and spent 4 hours trying to brainstorm ideas of what other Unreal Engine 3 games and Unreal Engine 4 games have done to potentially add to the PAX Shop. So one of the things that they're wondering is that right now the character classes are gender locked, which you had already said that they're going to be ungender locked come launch. Now,
let me correct there.
Okay.
I will not be able to get all of them ungender locked by launch without sacrificing westernization issues.
Okay.
But I will make sure by launch 2 classes need to be ungender locked to prove that the rest are coming. That way I want to be able to tangibly show you that the change that I'm promising is happening. I need dev time to make it happen. But at the very least, I need to give you a gesture of good faith.
Okay, so do you have any idea what 2 classes are going to be ungender locked?
I'm going to base that heavily off of the KRCBT that I'm waiting on my actual reports back from. It's whatever the 2 most popular were.
Okay. All right.
It's the fairest way I can do it.
Yep. All right. One of the other things that was brought up, there's not a whole lot you can do in terms of adjusting the character model itself. Like the mage is a lolly, the scholar is like a teenage schoolgirl kind of deal.
Yep.
The warrior's this big beefy guy.
Yep.
The rogue is like this teenage kid.
Yep.
So is there any way that you guys can implement a system that allows classes to use other models from other classes? So I don't want a scrawny little kid as a rogue. I want a beefy warrior type body as a rogue. Or instead of being a lolly, you can be the schoolgirl. Or if you have ungender locked classes, instead of being a short little skinny mage, you can be this big burly mage that looks cool.
All right. Again, I'm not going to have a very satisfactory answer to that. That's going to, again, hinge on technical. But at the very least, I want to say that that's a really logical progression coming after gender locking. And there's a certain value that's inherent with players identifying with their character. It being who you are, who your character is. And I want to give the power to the player to make an avatar that they are comfortable and happy with. I look at this game as a very long-term project, and if you're going to be playing that character for the next 2 years, that needs to be your character. You don't want to be a cookie cutter and look like every other guy running around.
Right.
That type of freedom should exist in MMOs.
Okay. Yeah, again, we're just spitballing ideas because, just like you said, you don't want to sell stuff in the cash shop that will directly influence your ability to beat the other player. You don't want to sell an advantage over players that don't buy whatever that is.
I'm going to take a moment here and interject one of the very important slogans that we're basing this project on.
Okay.
Power is not sold. Loyalty is earned.
Okay. That's a good slogan.
I believe this on the deepest level I can as a professional. That is how games should be, in our opinion.
Right. So, in the cash shop, what are some of the things that you plan on selling in there?
Okay. Most definitely, we will be selling cosmetic costumes as well as cosmetic weapons. The slots already exist for that in the KR build. I want to see, like, whenever Halloween runs around, this isn't a dead set thing, but I would really like to see, like, selling nightmare mounts around Halloween or reindeer mounts around Christmas. I want to take those big seasonal types of events and have cosmetic tier content that will help you. I'm also very interested in convenience-based items, and when I say convenience, that's a real slippery slope. So let me give an example. Whenever you're leveling throughout the game, you go through a very PvE section of the game. You have experienced this personally, in that there is no competitive edge in that area. You're not in a dungeon, you're not in PvP. If you die to mobs, you make a bad pull, I can sell you a cash shop item that allows you to resurrect instantly for that type of content. But you can't have that in a dungeon where you're playing competitively and your score is based off of how quick you can clear. In the Avalon realm, or the Avalon multi-faction map, I don't want you to be able to zombie kill somebody to where you have 32 resurrections and he's just playing normally. That's not fun. It's not competitive. There's a line between convenience and sideways power. It's still power, and we're not going to try to play word games to differentiate between those. It should not give you an advantage.
Okay, good. So, like some of those things we were talking about, the hair packs or like RGB hair, having more colors for your hair, being able to pick different body types are some of the things that we like here in the West that could potentially help you guys out in the cash shop market because you're not a selling power.
Exactly. A very good example of this is, let's take a look at Ion. Ion would specifically sell you different running animations where you could run like a ninja with your arms behind you, or your idle animation is that you have hover boots and you're kind of floating in the air. Things like that make it more personal to you. I'm comfortable selling those types of items. That does not give you an advantage over the other players, but you need to find it. You have to strike a balance between, you shouldn't have to pay money just to be comfortable with your character, but for things that are beyond comfortable, things that are special, that are unique, that could be a sold feature.
Okay. One of the other things that was brought up by all of us actually is right now there's no system to like dye your gear or to really like transmog your gear past buying the costumes in the cash shop. Do you guys have any plans to develop a dye system? Is that something that's being worked on, or something
that is not being worked on at this time? That is not on my roadmap. It is a very, very heavy system. Okay. Every costume and every model would have to be reworked for that. Okay. That is not going to be anytime near launch. That will have to be a ways out.
Okay. And when he says a ways, that means a long ways.
6 months minimum.
Okay, so while I was playing through the Korean version, we were fortunate enough to get our hands on an English patch from a fan, and it could have been lost in translation, but I couldn't keep track of lore at all. So can you go over lore and what it's supposed to be?
Okay, the lore is actually pretty interesting, and I have a video that will be debuted at the panel tomorrow, and it will be on YouTube on Monday. The original premise of this is there are two gods. There is Norden and Karza. One is the god of light, and one is the god of darkness. Karza, the god of darkness, became jealous of the god of light because he created order and light. To stop this and to break it, Karza polluted Atra, the magic that binds the universe together. This greatly damaged the world of man. Norden, to fix this, created the Estelles, and those are the spirits of the stars, and they are his direct servants. He then created blessed human beings, and they are called the Astellians. They can call upon the Estelles to bring them into combat and help balance the positive and negative energies of the world. You are the Astellian. Your job is to save the world. But the forces of Karza, they know you are one of the Astellians, and they have kidnapped your little sister to hold leverage over you and to stop you from interfering with them. So not only do you need to go forward into the world to save your sister, the world is hinging on you fixing what is wrong. You are tied up in the middle of a war between two incredibly powerful deities. And through that, you're going to have to go across countless battlefields, dozens of dungeons, and it's going to be a long-term investment for you to truly make an investment and change this world.
Excellent. So far in the Korean version, they launched an open beta, and they had the dungeons at level 15 all the way to level 50 in both solo and in group play.
Yep.
As soon as they got out of open beta, they launched the legendary dungeons, and there were 3 of them. And so, do you have any idea or a roadmap on expanding the number of legendary dungeons and when raids would come out here in NA?
At launch time, we should be about 6 months behind in content.
Okay.
We will work diligently to bring that in line with each other as quickly as possible. That needs to be, in my opinion, that needs to be a year 1 feat. They need to be caught up as close as possible. NA will never be parallel with KR due to localization and westernization. Right now, we have a content roadmap for the bare minimum the first year of the project with a lot more prospective. I am not in a position yet to where I can commit to that content until I have reviewed it all myself and made sure that it fits our market. But that content does exist, and it's very important to us that it does exist. You can't launch the game with nothing planned for the future, or the game will simply die out. There are users that will consume all of the content in months, and there will be users that consume it, it'll take them more than a year. We need to be able to keep up with most of the players. I understand, Rob, you yourself are an example. I will not be able to keep up with your consumption rate. If I do, I'd have to sacrifice quality, and that's not an option. But we are aware of the situation and will continue to deal and face it on a daily basis.
Can you go into detail about some of the raids during the cinematics and the previews and the trailers for the Korean version as well as here? I saw like this big black dragon this warrior was fighting. Is that a raid boss? And when the raids do come out, do you guys have an idea on size? Will there be different levels of difficulty?
Different levels of difficulty fit perfectly in the game's content so far, but as far as actual definitive rating at this stage, that is not our focus. We need to get the base model of the client out first, and from that, I will hinge very heavily on the community's feedback as to what is most important to the Western market specifically, and that will be fed as a direct channel through us, through me, to the Korean team. That includes having regular meetings, talking to them, and whenever the time or the need arises, actually going to Korea to be the representative of the Western market, both North America and Europe.
Okay. So you had mentioned gathering feedback. Have you guys developed a system to more easily and accurately gather the feedback, or?
I have something pretty good in the works for that. I need more time before I can give an answer. It's relying on forums and Reddit is not the best solution. We need a system that can have a much higher penetration rate.
Something that's easy, intuitive, where you don't have to go off to a random webpage, stuff like that. Yeah.
I don't want to get your feedback from Straw Polls, okay? Straw Polls is a great website. I have nothing against them. But wouldn't it make more sense to collect feedback from within the game itself?
Yeah.
If nothing else, maybe through the launcher. That way it has more penetration. Normally, only 30% of your player base ever actually uses the forums. That's a misrepresentation.
That's a good number, actually.
Yes, it is. 30%.
30% seems a little high.
I'm rounding.
Okay.
Up. And a lot of those people learn.
Yeah. In general. Yeah. That's the only time I'm actually on forums is when I'm at work.
Yep. And most of those...
Not when I'm playing.
And understand when I say 30%, that doesn't mean 30% are commenting. It's 30% are viewing.
Okay, I got you. Yep. Okay. So, that's something that I really look forward to because myself, I've seen in the industry that, developers are extremely slow, publishers are extremely slow to take that feedback and enact change. And because it's so slow, a lot of people just end up leaving or saying that the publishers don't care and the developers don't care. And so I'm actually really excited to hear that you guys are working on a way to make that more efficient. And so
I'm comfortable with saying that I have sat down at the table with the creator of Astellia himself, the gentleman that dreamed up this entire game. And I can promise you there's no one on the planet that cares more about it than him. He lives, eats, and breathes this game. And he's not just a manager. 16 hours sitting in the office programming himself.
Yep, he was.
It's a level of commitment that I don't see much anymore, and I am proud to work with him.
Yep, and also for the record, I've talked to a large portion of the team, both on the publisher side and on the management side here, and everybody works equally as hard. They put in well over 40 hours a week, and they're all passionate about making this game succeed in the West. That's something that so far in my experience has been completely unheard of, where everybody from the ground all the way up are on the same page and share that passion and make it succeed in the West. Because in general, Korean games in the past have seen other markets like the Western market, the North American market, the Japanese market as other streams of revenue. Where if they fail, who cares? And in this game has been completely different.
I have an anecdote for this. Whenever I first started working on this project, my first week of work working with PA&A was in Gangnam at our headquarters, and I spent that whole week leveling a character to in-game in the current build. I did that before I had a single meeting, and that was a requirement from headquarters. That alone should speak volumes.
It does.
Before I could give feedback, I had to play through every inch of this game at least one time. Yeah. In that time that I spent at that office, every employee, every computer I walked by, I saw Astellia on their screen. Not art assets, not rendering something new. I mean legitimately playing the game on non-GM accounts. Wow.
Yeah, that's something I have never seen before or even heard of before in any company.
That's it.
So, yeah, the more I learn about the company itself, the more excited I get because it's not the same runaround which we've been accustomed to. And I'm not afraid to drop their name. Bless screwed over the entire region. Like they wined and dined streamers to propagate false information and pretty much bamboozled us into funding their next crappy game launching on the Xbox. So when I learned more about the company itself and what your guys' priorities are, it helps me to believe in the industry again. Right now, the industry is in a very interesting spot. Saying that politely, but you guys have really stepped up and so far from what I've seen gone above and beyond what most developers and publishers do. So I'm very excited to hear that.
Speaking on a personal level, I don't work on games that I don't play personally. That's the best commitment I can give you.
And that's how it should be everywhere.
Games made by gamers for gamers.
Yep, exactly. So, on the Korean version, we'll just change gears here a little bit. We're able to experience some of the PvP. We're playing through a VPN, and so it's really hard to give accurate feedback because there's that layer of ping and extra overhead due to the VPN. But we were able to do the 1 versus 1 arenas. Others were able to participate in the 4 versus 4 arenas. And before the secondary classes came out, specialty classes, I'm not sure what the phrasing those are. Before those came out, PvP seemed more balanced than it should in an open beta. You guys definitely paid attention to balance before actually presenting the game to everybody. But what we haven't been able to do a lot of is Avalon.
Okay.
And so, again, we had an English patch donated. It was very rough, and we didn't get to learn a lot about what Avalon is.
Okay.
So would you mind going over that a little bit again?
I'm comfortable explaining some of the mechanics of it. I am not going to release the lore of it yet.
Okay.
But mechanically speaking, the way Avalon works is it's a persistent week-long event that has 3 factions. It is built to support 300 versus 300 versus 300 on a single channel.
Okay.
If you overflow that, secondary and tertiary channels will open up, and those contribute into the primary channel. The point count still adds up.
Okay.
There will be certain mechanics that get turned off in those other channels if there's not a player count to support it to make for an unfair advantage.
Okay.
The way it works is you don't belong to one specific faction for your lifetime. It's based on that session of Avalon. And you aren't tied to it by your guild, you're tied to it on a personal level. So all of your guild could join a singular faction within reason. There has to be an automated system that stops it from being totally tilted one way or the other. So that does mean, unfortunately, you may not always end up with your whole guild all in the same exact faction each week. But that is a cost we have to pay to avoid one faction permanently dominating every time from a very large community. As an example, I won't name any gaming communities. Let's just say if Reddit decided they all want to belong to faction A, who has more players than Reddit itself? That would not work. You and your group of 20 or 30 cannot hold a candle to the full might of Reddit. So that type of balancing system needs to exist. But outside of that, Avalon is intended to give you the freedom to either play as a large coalition of players or to come in with your static group of 4 or 8 or 7, however many. If you have a large group, you go head-to-head against other large groups, or you fight the world bosses themselves. If it's a smaller group, fight the smaller mobs, fight normal mobs, or do quests in that zone, because all of it gives points.
Okay.
The main factor there is throughout all of that content, you are always beyond question exposed to the risk of PvP. That is how it is intended to work. We did not want to pigeonhole that content to one specific type of player. The only concern that I can give with that is it does get difficult to balance, and it is something we will be mindful of from day one.
All right, yeah, that's great information. It actually segues perfectly into guilds. So as a guild, we had like 12 people. We joined Avalon, and you know, we did okay. I mean, we somehow ended up on the winning team, which is cool.
Congratulations.
But and in the guild system itself, are there any plans to expand the quality of life within the guild system? So like right now, they have you start off with 30 people able to join the guild. Then you have to do guild stuff in order to gain points or XP to increase the level of the guild. And then from what we understand, it automatically increases the maximum number of people that you can have in the guild, and that's about it. Are there any plans to adjust the minimum guild size for North America, since we like larger guilds?
It's not something I'm going to do before the first CBT.
Okay.
I will base it off of y'all's experiences once I get that first round of feedback. One of the key things, we're not going to be doing any form of public or paid alpha testing. We will keep that internal for our own use. And then between the CBTs, we're making sure that there's enough time in between them for the dev team to actually collect that feedback and apply it in a meaningful manner.
Okay.
So based off of that, we'll go with that.
So is that how you're approaching the Western development of the game itself, making those modifications for the Western market? You're going to come out with the CBTs, gather as much information as you can, and tackle the most pressing issues? That's
missing one step. I've been following the game since before the KR launch. I've been through it through CBT2 and through CBT1. I personally played through both, and as we all know, the Western players gain access to the KR side no matter what hurdles are in place, whether it's through VPNs, getting accounts from their friends, any of those measures. I have been hands-on with that from the very beginning as a player itself. I have not been branded as part of any of the staff, so that I could personally experience these issues side by side with other gamers, and that feedback has been collected from the very beginning. Okay, so you guys have had
that already actively been working on some of the bigger issues.
Yes.
Oh, that's great to hear.
Yes. I need all of the time possible to make the right changes.
Fantastic. Okay, do you guys have any plans to then like a guild bank or guild storage, or have some sort of like minor buffing bonuses available for larger guilds? You know, perks for joining a guild. I'm not sure if those are in the game. We tried to level, but we're fairly small, so we didn't get that far.
I'm going to be dead honest on this one. I'm not real sure. I will need to check on that.
Okay. Put a feather in that one. Put a bit in that one. All right. Like sitting here today, talking with you, talking with your team. This has actually been answered already, but I still want to ask the question. Again, going back to one of the most recent games come out from Korea that's built on Unreal Engine 3, House Online. That has left a very sour taste in our mouths and has made us super skeptical, even more so than before, of anything coming over from the East, especially if they're Unreal Engine and from like a new publisher. And so, what are you guys doing that is going to be different than the publishers and developers that have come before you? Because it's been going downhill up until this point.
The most important step that we have to correct that issue is establishing an open, direct communication chain between the community itself, us as the publishing entity, and the developers in Korea. That needs to exist. Your feedback needs to be put into the hands of the developers themselves. Okay. And it's not just they want this. A level of understanding is required. Why do the players want this? That way, we don't just want the dev team to do what is said. We want them to understand the intent behind it so that they can move forward with an understanding of the Western market from the beginning when they have those new ideas. That is the single most important thing of this entire process.
So you guys have a direct line of communication with the developers themselves?
Yes. We view ourselves as a global publishing organization. We are one singular team. At this event yourself, you should have met Tony. That is our Chief Technical Officer out of Korea. You've also met Min. That is one of our heads of business. We look at this and we work together hand in hand. From everything from the game itself to coming to PAX to this interview.
Oh, fantastic. That's, at least for me, really unheard of. Typically, when I worked as a GM, one of the biggest issues that we had as a Western publisher, publishing a game that was developed in the East, was the communication itself. Yes. Oftentimes, we would gather a ton of feedback. We would send off, a 30-page report saying we need to get these things done, and this is why, and nothing happens whatsoever. And so you guys
internally handled our own FGTs from North America's side. Those are broken down into very clearly articulated reports. We translate them ourselves in our office, and we have sit-down meetings and go over it line by line with the developers.
Wow, that is, at least for me, like completely unheard of whatsoever. Like that divide between publishers and developers, like from the sounds of it, it's not even there. You guys are working literally hand in hand to bring this game to the West in a version that actually fits our market rather than some randomized one that kind of works and mostly doesn't.
Having content line up on the scheduling is very important, but there has to be a differentiation between the builds between the two different regions because we have to meet two very different markets. We walk into that with open eyes.
Yeah, fantastic. And we had talked about this a little bit earlier today, and this is something that I literally spent hours arguing with other people about. What is your definition of pay to win?
Our definition of pay to win, and I'm going to start this one off with that is an incredibly difficult question. It's a theological debate.
It is. That's why it took us hours.
The way that we
there's no winner.
Pay to win is anything that you can buy that gives you an advantage over another player that has not bought that thing, whatever it is. And that's very, very broad, but that is the most honest answer I can give you. You should not have something that you bought for money that makes it easier for you to beat the guy that did not buy said thing.
Okay.
There's a million different ways to spin it, whether it's buying it and reselling it in-game, whether it's direct power, whether it's being able to resurrect on the spot in a PvP conflict. It's such a broad question, I can't give you one definitive example, but the general premise and the spirit of the message is you should not be able to buy power.
All right. One of the other things that I have seen, I've been going through different forums, going on Reddit, looking at the comments after articles on web pages, and something pops up over and over again, and that is the fact that it's built on Unreal Engine 3. And as we were talking about earlier, you were saying that graphics-wise, you guys have literally pushed the graphics engine, Unreal Engine 3, to its limits, and the game looks good.
Thank you.
The game looks good. However, compared to games that are coming out, in the next year, the next 2 years, this is something that's been mentioned over and over again, is that the game will already look sort of dated. Now, it already looks good now, but the things that are coming out within the next couple of years, especially on these new graphics engines, are expected to look a lot better. And so, what are you, as a company, doing to help keep the game modernized?
Whenever you're talking about a topic like this, you have to take into consideration a lot of effects. And Unreal 4 is an absolute beautiful engine, and its capabilities are unsurpassed at this stage. But one of the things that we can accomplish with the Unreal 3 engine, first let me say, there's a lot of factors that you have to take into account to balance this out. And one of the things that I can give an example here, there are a lot of people that had hands-on time with the game today. By using the Unreal 3 engine, first let me say, to take it to Unreal 4, due to the difference in the infrastructure that those two engines use, you would have to start over. We have to make a choice between starting over to make the game look better or keeping what we have and focusing on making the game play better. The people that are sitting at this table with us today while we do this interview, all of you had hands-on time with the game, at least most of you. The server that you played on is in Gangnam, South Korea. That experience on the, you can check the specs later, all of the test laptops were the basic Razer model, like as in the Razer Blade that Razer was kind enough to gift to us for this event. Everyone here has spoken about how much smoother the game ran. Now obviously the KR, the actual launch, was quite different because the player load itself was there. But by being on the Unreal 3 engine, we can focus more on the game, its content, and its westernization, and we can let the game run on lower spec systems. I will take wider availability and more polish and more well thought out systems over visually stunning every single time. Okay. Content in my world trumps appearance.
Okay. So to wrap this up, we've heard a lot of good things. I've seen a lot of good things, and all we can do is wait. But what we do know is, and just like what we've heard from you and what I've heard from everybody else, everybody within the company is passionate about this game and everybody wants to see this work. A very last question that has popped up, and you had mentioned this briefly during the discussion about the cash shop, is do you guys plan on having like events, PvP competition, and other like online content, like stuff through the forums or through Discord and stuff like that?
So what you're talking about there's actually a word for it in the industry. It's called gamification, and that's where gameplay aspects are available outside of the game itself.
Right.
I believe that that's incredibly important for engaging players. You can't be at your PC 24 hours a day playing the game, but you can be at work, you can be on the forums, you could be on an official Discord or a fan-based Discord. You could be viewing it on your cell phone while you're sitting on a train heading to the university. Having that level of engagement is priceless. Whenever you have a game that you really care about, you never want to walk away from it, but you have real-life commitment. We want to put systems in place. We need to find ways that allow you to stay connected to the game, even whenever you can't actually connect to the game. I value that deeply, and we want to find systems to do that. I can honestly say, I do not have the details of it worked out yet, but that's a lot of work that needs to come between me and my community manager, and it is on the docket to happen.
Okay, so you guys already have a community manager who's working on stuff like this.
Yes, most definitely. It was imperative from the earliest stage to bring on at least one community manager and our head of customer support. They have been there almost as long as I have. Virtually, it's year one. They were there within the first 6 months of the project starting off for North America and Europe. Having that level of engagement, it's not normal to bring them in that early. But we've had the time. Everyone from my chairman that owns the global organization to our art guy in the North American office has played a character to level cap.
So there you guys have it. Proof that I am not the CM. I'm just a random guy playing games on the internet just like the rest of you.
I can confirm this wholeheartedly. Rob does not work for us.
Some people thought I was a CM and I was just trying to hype the game, and there you have it.
Well, Rob, I really do appreciate you taking the time. You came out here on your own to talk to us, and I look forward to doing more of this. I'm more than happy to do interviews directly with the community, whether it's through direct press outlets, through influencers themselves, people that are making websites. If you care about Astellia, I want to talk to you.
Good. Fantastic. Wes, thank you so very much for speaking with me today. Definitely appreciate it. I know you're a busy man.
Thank you much.